In just 48 hours, Lucinda, age 70, did something she once thought was impossible for over 15 years. She didn't just clean her home, she freed her life from the weight that had quietly settled in every room, every drawer, and every memory. No team of helpers, no complicated plan, just 10 powerful principles designed specifically for older adults. And one simple decision: I don't want to spend the rest of my life feeling suffocated anymore. 2 days later, her house didn't just look tidy. It felt open, warm, and peaceful in a way she hadn't felt in years. The living room, once buried under layers of keepsakes, was now filled with morning light streaming through the window and the soft song of birds resting on the porch. Lucinda smiled and said, "I didn't just declutter my home, I decluttered the way I see life." Today, you're going to learn the exact 10-step system Lucinda used to transform both her home and her heart in just 48 hours. No unrealistic promises, just small, simple steps, powerful enough to change everything. So if you've ever looked around your house and whispered to yourself, "I don't even know where to start," stay with me until the end of this video. And if you're ready to rediscover that gentle sense of peace in your own space, hit subscribe to Senior Rise, where together we learn how to live with less clutter and more calm. Stage 1. Reclaiming control. Hack 1. The Wisdom Advantage. On the first morning of her 48-hour journey, Lucinda didn't begin with cleaning. She began with a thought. She sat on her familiar wooden chair out on the porch, looked at the stack of boxes in front of her, and smiled softly. "When I was young," she whispered, "I used to buy things to make myself feel full. Now, I just want to live lighter. I don't need to buy more. I need to let go." That's the gift of age. Older adults aren't caught up in trends or what society says we should have. We've lived through decades of promises, advertisements claiming a new gadget could change everything. We've learned that happiness doesn't live inside something new. It lives inside peace. Lucinda didn't need anyone to teach her how to choose. She simply had to trust her own experience. Each time she picked something up, she asked herself, "Does this still add value to my life today? Or is it just a reminder of who I used to be?" If the answer was who I used to be, she set it down. Gently, but firmly. Age doesn't take away our ability to decide. It gives us the wisdom to know what's worth keeping and what's not. If you're watching this right now, ask yourself, what in my home makes me feel like I'm living more in the past than in the present? Sometimes taking back control doesn't begin with action. It begins with the quiet honesty of realizing we've lived long enough to know we deserve a lighter life. Hack 2. The 5-second mercy rule. Once her mind was ready, Lucinda began to touch each item. And in that first moment, she practiced one of the simplest but most powerful rules in the system. 5 seconds to decide an item's fate. When she picked up a shirt, she counted quietly to herself. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. By the time she reached 5, if she hadn't worn it in years, it went straight into the donation bag. No hesitation, no little voice saying, "Maybe I'll need it someday." Just 5 seconds, yet 5 seconds that helped her reclaim ownership of her space. She used to pause in the middle of cleaning, holding an object while memories tangled in her heart. But not this time. "It felt like I was training my mind to let go," she said. "Not because I didn't love those things, but because I love peace more." If you've ever stood in a room full of memories and didn't know where to start, try this today. Pick something up, count to 5, and act. Don't overthink it. Your emotions may resist, but your intuition already knows the truth. And you'll be surprised to discover letting go doesn't hurt as much as you feared. We just never gave ourselves the chance to try. Hack 3. The 15-minute tornado. A few hours later, bits of floor began to appear. But Lucinda knew that at 70, she didn't have endless energy. So she used what she called the 15-minute tornado. Instead of tackling an entire room, she picked one small area, a drawer, a counter, a shelf, and set a 15-minute timer on her phone. When the clock started, she moved quickly and with purpose. Her hands never stopped. One item to keep, one to donate, one to toss. When the timer rang, she stopped. No pushing, no guilt, no overdoing it. Then she poured herself a cup of tea and smiled. "Just 15 minutes," she said, "and my kitchen already looks brighter. Not because I've finished, but because I finally started." The 15-minute tornado isn't about speed, it's about momentum. Each short session is a small victory, and those little victories are how she kept her energy steady through all 48 hours. If you're watching and feel like you don't have the strength to clean your whole home, remember, you don't have to. You only have to clean for the next 15 minutes. Set the timer, play some gentle music, let your hands do the work while your mind begins to breathe again. Because sometimes a lifetime of change begins with a single, small corner. By the end of that first day, Lucinda no longer felt overwhelmed. The rooms were still messy, but a new kind of order was quietly taking shape. And most of all, she felt that she was back in control of her life, not controlled by it. Before we move on, I'd love to hear from you. If you had just 15 minutes today to begin, which corner of your home would you choose first? Share it in the comments. Your answer might be the spark someone else needs to start, too. Stage 2. Organizing with purpose. After her first full night of deep sleep in months, Lucinda woke up feeling lighter. She brewed a cup of tea, stood by the kitchen window, watching the morning light pour in, and whispered to herself, "Yesterday, I began. Today, I'll put things in order, with purpose." During these 48 hours, she wasn't chasing perfection. She only needed a system, simple enough to keep her moving forward, without slipping back. Hack 4. The Legacy Box System. Lucinda began her second morning by setting 3 boxes on the floor. They were nothing fancy, just old cardboard boxes. But to her, they represented 3 chapters of her life. The first she labeled present, for the things she truly used every day. The second she called memories, for sentimental pieces tied to love, youth, and family. The third she marked let go, for everything that no longer belonged in the life she was living now. She stared at the 3 boxes for a long moment and smiled. "Maybe I don't need anyone to teach me how to let go," she thought. "I just need a reason to choose what's worth keeping." Each item she picked up, she handled gently, but decisively. A dusty old photo frame, into memories. A set of glasses unused for 5 years, into let go. Her favorite apron, the one she still wore every morning, stayed in present. No tears, just a quiet, honest conversation between a woman and herself. She reminded herself of one rule. The memories box could hold no more than 20% of what she kept. Because if everything is precious, then nothing truly is. Mid-morning, Lucinda paused and looked around her half-tidy, half-messy room. That was when she realized, letting go isn't losing, it's choosing what deserves to stay. If you're watching this, try it yourself. 3 boxes and a little courage are all you need. You don't have to rush. Begin with one small thing. What's the first item you'd place in your own memory box? Think about that for a moment, and you might notice something shift. Not in your home, but deep inside your heart. Hack 5. The room rotation technique. That afternoon, as the sunlight softened, Lucinda walked into her bedroom, the room she'd avoided opening for years. She didn't try to do it all. Instead, she broke the work into 4-hour sessions. 4 hours is perfect, she said. Enough to stay focused, not enough to wear me out, and long enough to feel I'm steering the day. She started with the bedroom, tending only to the closet, the nightstand, and a single drawer. She didn't think about the living room. She didn't worry about the garage. Just one space, one breath, one small victory. After lunch, she moved to the living room. Stacks of old magazines, a sofa, buried under decorative pillows. She looked at them all and smiled. I used to love collecting. Now I love empty space even more. That evening, she turned to the kitchen. But only the countertops and cooking area. The fewer the goals, the more energy she had. The next morning, Sunday, she continued with the bathroom and closets. By afternoon, she spent her final 4 hours in the garage, a place filled with things she had saved for later over the last 10 years. When the sun finally set, she stood in the doorway, feeling as if a new current had begun to flow through her home. The room rotation technique didn't just help Lucinda declutter, it helped her protect her focus and her self-respect. She no longer felt like a failure for not finishing everything at once. She simply saw herself moving forward, one step, one space, one gentle victory at a time. If you've ever felt like giving up halfway through because it was all too much, remember this: no one clears an entire house in a single day, but anyone can clear one room in 4 hours. Break the journey into pieces and trust that every bit of space you open today becomes a breath of calm for your future. Before we move into the most emotional part of Lucinda's story, where she faces her memories, her family, and her own heart, let me ask you something. If you were to begin your own 48-hour journey, which room would you start with? Share it in the comments below. Someone out there might read your answer and find the courage to start too. Stage 3. Healing and letting go. As light slowly returned to every corner of her home, Lucinda realized something important. The heaviest clutter wasn't on the shelves or under the bed. It was the old memories quietly tucked away inside her heart. Each object, each photograph, each keepsake was a whisper from another time, a reminder of people and years now gone. And in that moment, she understood. Decluttering isn't just a physical act, it's an emotional journey of healing. Hack 6. Future self-visualization. That morning, Lucinda sat cross-legged on the living room floor, closed her eyes, and imagined. She pictured herself a year from now, living in a home where everything had a place of its own. No more towers of books stacked high. No dining table lost beneath piles of things. Just open space, filled with light and quiet calm. In that vision, she saw herself reading a book, sipping her tea, feeling the warmth of morning sunlight on her hands. Nothing to cling to, nothing to disturb her, only the beautiful stillness she had longed for. Then, she opened her eyes. The room around her was still messy, but her mind had already begun to find order. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "My future self will thank me for letting go today." Whenever she hesitated, unsure whether to keep or release something, she asked, "Will my future self feel more at peace if this stays, or if it's gone?" That single question became her compass for every decision. If you're watching this, take a few seconds right now. Close your eyes. Picture your own home, tidy, calm, light-filled, and see yourself walking through it. You'll know instantly what you want to keep and what you're ready to release, all in the quiet pause of one gentle breath. Hack 7. The Memory Preservation Method. This was the part that moved Lucinda the most, not because of how much there was to sort through, but because of what each thing meant. That afternoon, she opened an old box in the garage. A box filled with drawings her children had made in grade school, postcards, and little gifts no one even remembered who gave. She picked up each paper, smiling through small tears. Those memories were beautiful. But soon, she understood. The memories didn't live inside the objects. These drawings don't hold my children's love, she whispered. My heart does. She didn't throw them all away. Instead, she chose 1 or 2 pieces that truly captured their spirit and photographed the rest with her phone. Later, she created a digital album on her computer. She called it The Years That Made Me Smile. Now, whenever she missed those moments, she could simply open the folder and revisit them, without the boxes, without the weight. When she closed the final lid, she didn't feel loss. She felt lightness. Because finally, she understood. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering in a simpler, warmer way. If you're watching, pause for a moment and think of one item that carries the most memories for you. You can keep it in a photo, a written story, or simply within your heart. Are you holding on because you're afraid to forget? Or because you haven't yet trusted that your heart remembers even without touching it? Hack 8. The Family Involvement Protocol. As Lucinda neared the end of her journey, another challenge appeared. Her family. When her daughter stopped by, she asked, "Mom, why did you give away that old teapot?" "It was Grandma's." Lucinda smiled and answered gently, "Because it belonged to another time, sweetheart, and I'm living in this one." She knew that sometimes the people we love most are the ones who struggle most to let us change. Not because they're wrong, but because they're afraid we'll regret it. So before she began decluttering, Lucinda gathered her children and said, "I'm doing this to bring more peace into my home. I just need you to respect my decisions. If there's anything you'd like to keep, please take it this week. After that, everything else will be donated." No arguments, no asking for permission, just a boundary drawn with love. Because real love isn't about holding on to objects, it's about honoring each other's choices. A week later, when no one came for the remaining items, Lucinda gave them all away. No one was angry. They were simply surprised by her calmness. And it was then she realized the greatest lesson of all. Peace in a home begins the moment we dare to speak clearly about what we need. If you're watching and worry that your family won't understand, remember, you have every right to create an environment that feels safe and gentle for you. Speak with honesty, because those who truly love you will always want you to feel lighter, not burdened. By the end of this stage, Lucinda's home wasn't just tidy, it was tranquil. Every room felt alive again. The walls weren't crowded with pictures anymore, but every single one that remained told a story that still made her smile. Before we move into the final stage, liberation and maintenance, pause for a moment and ask yourself, if you could say one thing to your future self today, would you thank yourself for what you kept or for what you let go of? Share your thoughts in the comments below. You never know, your words might reach someone who needed to hear them tonight. Stage 4. Liberation and maintenance. After 3 emotional stages, Lucinda stepped into the final 24 hours of her 48-hour journey. And at this point, it was no longer about cleaning. It was about liberation. Her home already felt lighter, but there were still a few scattered bags, things already marked as gone, yet still waiting to truly leave. That's when she began her final step, to close the full circle of her 48-hour transformation. Hack 9. The donation station strategy. Lucinda chose a small corner in the garage and placed a sign that read, "On their way to a new home." It became the sacred space where every item destined to leave her house would go. No more random bags. One in the living room, another in the kitchen, another by the hallway. Everything gathered in one place. Each time she finished a room, she brought the outgoing items there. Before long, that corner became what she called her energy spot, a place where every departing object carried away a piece of old heaviness, leaving behind a little more calm. She said sometimes she'd stop, look at the growing pile, and tear up. "Not because I was sad," she said softly, "but because I could feel myself getting lighter, one bag at a time." On Sunday afternoon, as the sun began to dip, Lucinda loaded everything into her car. She drove to the local charity center, and as she handed the items over, it felt as though an old door inside her heart quietly closed. On her way home, the breeze flowed through the open window. She smiled, not because the house was clean, but because at last, everything had truly left. If you're watching this, try setting up your own small donation station. It could be a corner of your garage, or simply a box in your living room. And every time you decide to let something go, place it there immediately. You'll notice something beautiful. With every bag that fills up, your mind feels just a little emptier and a little freer. Hack 10. The Victory Lap Celebration System. When the 48 hours finally ended, Lucinda didn't turn on the TV. She didn't check her phone. She simply stood in the middle of her living room, once a battlefield of clutter, and stood in silence. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the window, resting softly on the bare walls. And for the first time in many years, she could hear the sound of stillness. She took out her phone and photographed every corner of her home, not to show anyone, but to remember how peace feels. Then she picked up a piece of paper and wrote a few short lines. "I did it. I thought I'd feel tired, but I feel light. I thought I'd feel regret, but I feel free." She folded the note, placed it in an envelope, and taped it inside her wardrobe door. "So next time," she said, "if I ever start piling things up again, I'll read this." That evening, she celebrated quietly. She lit a candle, made a simple dinner, played her favorite music, and sat down to eat, surrounded by nothing but peace. Because that's what those 48 hours had truly brought her. The real joy of finishing wasn't in the clean house. It was in the feeling of taking ownership of her life again. Lucinda said, "I've lived here for 30 years, and I've never truly felt this house was mine, until I let go of what I didn't need." If you're watching, I'd love for you to try this. When you finish decluttering, capture the moment. Take a photo, write a few words about how you feel, or simply sit quietly, close your eyes, and take a deep breath. That isn't just celebration. It's how you anchor a positive emotion to a positive action. And that's the secret to keeping your home tidy, sis, and your heart light for a long, long time. When the 48 hours finally ended, Lucinda's home wasn't just tidy. It had become an extension of her soul. Every room seemed to breathe a little easier. Every hallway felt wider, and each morning, sunlight streamed through the windows as if greeting a new woman. She no longer feared opening closets, no longer avoided the room once buried in the past. She simply stood there, took a deep breath, and felt the soft scent of morning tea drift through the air. She smiled and said, "I didn't just clear my home, I cleared my life." 48 hours, just 2 days, yet the 2 bravest days of her 70 years. 2 days when she chose to pause, to listen, and to finally let go of what had grown too heavy to carry. And perhaps at the very moment she whispered, "Enough," a new chapter quietly began. If you're still here, watching this, maybe somewhere in your own mind, there's a room like Lucinda's, a place you haven't yet felt ready to face. But believe me, you don't need to be stronger. You only need to start with 15 minutes, a single box, or one small decision. Every item you release gives something back to you, a bit of space, a bit of freedom, and sometimes a bit of peace you forgot you ever had. After 60, a home is more than a shelter. It's a mirror of the soul. When we clear the corners around us, we also clear the hidden corners within us. And one day, you'll walk through that same home and realize peace was never something to be found outside of you. It was something you built quietly within. If today's video touched something inside your heart, leave a comment below. Tell me, how will you begin your own 48-hour transformation? And if you're still here with me at the very end, thank you truly. Because that means you're not just trying to tidy your house, you're learning how to live lighter, freer, and happier. Hit subscribe to Senior Rise, where each week we take small, gentle steps back toward peace. In our homes, in our minds, and in the lives we're still beautifully creating.